John, please step away from my energy. John, can you walk towards that light, John, for me? We're a friend, and family will be there, my friend. And your mishaps will be forgiven. You won't be judged. And you can be with your wife again. That's it. Keep going, my friend. Keep going, friend. That light. Walk into that light. God bless you, John.
Believing John has been sent to the light, Claire sums up the night's experience.
Absolutely fascinating evening. Remarkable. The most interesting thing was when we were actually doing the Ouija board and the glass was tilting and he was trying to take the ring from underneath it. And he was still obviously very angry, and I think we resolved that anger, and hopefully he's at peace now and has moved on, and he's with his wife, so hopefully it's all good.
Well, what a very interesting building. It's been a hive of activity tonight, with all the bumps and bangs, even the motion detectors going off with unexplained activity in the building. But hopefully the house is calming down, and it's going to take a while. It's going to take 2-3 weeks, but it should be a really nice place to live.
In the end, we were able to reunite John and Mary and move them on, and the children are going to stay.
Yeah, I'm so pleased that the children are here to stay now. Their soul's been passed over, and hopefully they'll stop being mischievous.
All right.
Armed with the names of the spirits, Living with the Dead historian Hallie Rubenhold visits the local records office to see if she can shed some light on tragic lovers John and Mary.
I've managed to find a Mary in the Harrogate Advertiser for 1858. The story is entitled A Barbarous Murder at Darley. The deceased, Mary Jane Scaife, was all but 22 years of age. She'd been seeing her lover, James Atkinson, a good-looking young man, for several years. James had a temper that frequently manifested itself, and earlier that day, Mary had received attention from a man called Gill, which had excited Atkinson's jealousy. That evening, Richard Howard, a local china dealer, saw Mary and James walking together along Stumps Lane.
Stumps Lane is just across the valley from Claire's farmhouse.
At 5 o'clock the following morning, Mary's body was discovered in a ditch off Stumps Lane. It was a horrific sight to behold. Her throat had been slashed in 8 places and her face had been savagely mutilated. Her eyes were protruding from her head and her bonnet was saturated in blood. The body was found here, and after the local policeman saw it, he went straight over to the Atkinsons' house. There he confronted James, who confessed to him that yes, he had killed his sweetheart. Mary's family had an expensive headstone erected onto which a poem was inscribed. The verses read, "The victim of the murderer's blade beneath the gory corse was laid. Her soul we trust to realms has flown, where theft and murder are unknown." Her murderer was acquitted on grounds of insanity. However, there's much more to this story than meets the eye. Mary was not the picture of Victorian innocence that we would like to think, and in fact, the year before her murder, she was carrying James Atkinson's child. For 2 young people from respectable families who were unmarried, this was utterly scandalous.
Could this Mary, who was so savagely mutilated by her jealous lover, be the same spirit that the team felt they'd exorcised from Claire's house? And could this James have been Claire's John? A month later, Claire looks back on the whole experience.
When Ian started channeling, it was actually quite scary, actually. I've never seen it done before. And you've watched movies, you've seen films where people are possessed and they take over. But to actually see it done real in front of you in the flesh is, it's really odd, and a bit scary, actually. The weirdest thing about it was actually see his face changing, and it didn't actually, well, I mean, it still looked like him, but the features actually changed on his face.
Oh, shut up!
When Ian came up with the idea of putting Ali back up in her room on her own, I didn't know what was going to happen, quite honestly. Ali said she could feel a presence there, whether it was one child or two children. She wasn't quite sure, but she could feel a presence.
Deep breaths.
Okay, Ali?
I just feel very sad suddenly.
Every time Ian asked her to call the children, the TV downstairs, the monitor, went to blackout.
Rebecca, if you're here, please step forward.
And then came back on again. Every single time. That was spooky. And then when the alarms were triggered off by John coming out of my bedroom, that was a real panic moment.
What's that?
Nobody else is up there, and we could see those two sitting on the bed, but all the crew were downstairs. And then when Ian started panicking, that was even worse. We were just like, well, what do we do?
Get him out now, please.
After the alarms had gone off, then Ian sent me and Amanda upstairs into my room. As soon as we walked in, there was a noise. Did you hear that noise through there?
He's in the bathroom.
So we jumped, because it was just after all that panic going on. Oh, shut up, don't say that. The fact that John dwelt within my bedroom was probably the worst part of it, because you do think that is your sanctuary, your own space, and a peaceful area to be, you know, sleeping, all the rest of it. To find out you have a murderer, his wife who had been murdered, John's wife, who had been murdered, and two children living there, which I knew there must have been children because of the type of things that were going on in the house. So yeah, that was a bit alarming.
In the belief that John has been successfully exorcised from the house, how does Claire now feel about her home?
The first night after the séance, funnily enough, I felt very peaceful. My mind was at rest because I knew exactly what had happened. I knew the story, and actually we both slept pretty well. Then, for about 2 weeks, things started going very strange with various pieces of electronic equipment. Like we had a fire, the oven blew up, various other things, and it was just all to do with electrical. But since then, for 2 weeks, it's just really settled down. Don't have the noises that we used to have. I mean, it still creaks about a bit, but it actually feels quite peaceful. It's got a nice karma about it now.